Sami Handicraft Foundation Sami Doji was established by two big Sami organizations, Sami Ätnam and the Swedish Reindeer Organization, SSR. We are the holder of the Sami Doji mark. And the purpose of this mark is to protect Sami handicraft against plagiarism and unfair competition. Doji in the Sami culture is very important. It's an identity marker, a culture holder, a language marker, and a way of expressing. So you can't take out Doji from the Sami culture. It's a very big influence on the Sami culture. The nomadic lifestyles will shape the whole Sami culture, and every item has its own history. It's made by natural materials, and it must have a reason. It must be easy to carry. It must be practical, functional, and every item must be beautiful as well. This is a small exhibition from our collection. The second item is the Sami knife. The shape of the knife are depending on which part of the antler we are using, and the ornamentation are different from area to area as well. As a nomadic people, our bags are very important. So this is a bag in rainy skin, soft shapes, and it's practical. The traditional handicraft from yesterday is exactly the same today. The traditional handicraft is exactly the same, so unbroken tradition, but the modern way of living have new needs. So the handbag was not traditional. Today it is a need from the centerfold, from the keys. Today we have a need of to have a table in Sami design with the glasses, for example, and yesterday we don't have that need. So it's been changing, so we're taking the Sami culture with careful into the new times. The Sami Doji is so outstanding, as you can easily recognize it on which other handicraft in the world. So it is interesting, and we have a big unfair competition and plagiarism industry. We have a very good example on the Finnish side of Sami. Then we have a very big industry in unfair competition, fake Doji, and very big industry, fake Sami culture experience. And it started to be closer and closer here in Sweden as well. And the only way we can meet it is information about the Sami culture and try to inform the value of respecting the Sami culture. So one way of meeting the unfair competition is trademark Sami Doji mark. So if you want to be sure that you're looking at authentic Sami handicraft, you look for the mark. The Doji is so involved in the Sami culture, you can't put out Doji from its context. So you are talking about the Sami culture in general when you're talking about Doji. One way or another way. The Doji is an identity marker, a culture holder, and language holder, and a way of expressing. So the Doji is a big part of the Sami culture.
My name is Sami. I'm from Inari, the Finnish side of Sami, and now living in Jokkmokk, in Swedish part of Sami. I'm activist, but I'm working with art. We need to have a concrete example to fight for. So that's why color is really important, because it's a symbol for everything what is happening, the colonization, what is still going on. So we need these examples, we need these fights to lift the situation. I think even though it doesn't exist physically, but it exists in our minds. It's like a place where we're still living, but it was, for me, it was a gathering place, but it was also a place for different, like a lot of different kinds of people. I think the movements are not so much anymore about the organizations, as I see Kallok. So it's like there are a lot of like small groups who are working together and working in a bigger kind of movement, because Kallok is also about colonization of Sami. It's also about the Sami rights. So all these small groups like gathered at the place, even though we didn't see it then, but it's quite funny. Like in 1 month, the struggle became from environmental movement into a Sami rights movement, and those two things, of course, are going together. I'm not kind of expert on mining or climate change or something, but I know that I see what is happening around me. It's like death. The things are just dying, and I know if the things are dying around me or my children, so there is no possibility to survive. The situation hasn't changed so much in the past 500 years, because the states are still colonizing our land and our culture. They're still defining us and defining our culture, and they're still determining our, like, where should we live, how should we live. We don't have any self-determination right, or we don't have right to self-determination. So that's it's like the colonization for me. It's everyday life, because I cannot be the person who I would like to be, or I cannot live the life what I would like to live. It's mostly about the land, because the land is the one who is defining us. The land is where we're coming from. The land is the most important, and we cannot survive without the land. We cannot live with the land as we would like to be. We don't have the land rights. This is our land. It's not the government's. It's not Sweden, Finland. No, it's the Sami. It's our territory. It belongs to us. My children, they don't have the right to learn to read or write on their own mother tongue, because the colonization have gone so far that we don't have people who speak or can write the language. We're losing our language every day. And if there are not teachers who can teach it, so how can the children learn it?
My name is Henrik Blind. I'm from Jokkmokk. I'm part of one of the Sami villages here in Jokkmokk called Torpon Sameby, which is one of the Sameby which is in the mountain area. I'm a Sami, of course, and I'm a local politician, and I do little of everything. Right for the moment, I'm a student. I'm reading the Sami language, and my Sami is the north part of Sapmi. I live here in Jokkmokk, but for 100 years ago, my great-grandfather, he was living in the north part of Sweden, up in the Karesuando. But by this politics, when the border was closed, the Swedish government find a solution that because it went too many rangers in a very small area. So the Swedish government find a solution that, well, hey, you can move in. There are Samis living in the south, so you can go there. And you have to remember that this was in the it was in the beginning of the 1900s. Many of the Samis, they couldn't read Swedish and understand what they were because they signed contracts, but they didn't really know what that was all about. That they was giving the permission. Yes, it's okay for me to move. So that's the history why I'm living here. I mean, I'm originally from the north part of the Swedish Sapmi, but now I'm living here. This is a part of the history. And I think also something that many Swedes in general don't know about, that this was a politics that their own government was doing, moving people, groups to other areas. I'm aware about how much money talks. I have also gotten another picture of Sweden as a nation. When you live in Sweden, where you have grown out that with the picture of that we are standing in the front line for the human rights, and we have a history that we have one of the first general secretary in the UN with Dag Hammarskjöld, and then see how when my people are standing in the front line and see that we can't live the way we want to live. If you go in the Swedish school system, you probably read more about the Indians, the First Natives in America, than you do about their own indigenous. Sad but true.
Nu ska vi några mil utanför Jokkmokk där en stor järnmalmsfyndighet upptäcktes för 2 år sedan. En fyndighet som verkar växa ju fler borrhål man gör. Men den har redan delat samhället i 2 delar, en för och en emot.
Här 4 mil från Jokkmokk går nu borrmaskinerna dygnet runt. Järnmalmen ligger bara en halv meter under markytan. Pinnen med magneten står rakt upp. Det är mellan 30-45% ren järnmalm här i gruvan i Jokkmokk. Fyndigheten är idag lika stor eller större än den gruva som nu snart ska öppna i Pajala. Och värdet på gruvan är ungefär 50 miljarder svenska kronor idag.
Den är enorm. Den är fantastisk. Helt otroligt stor. Alltså, det blir större för varje gång vi sätter ett borrhål i backen.
I Pajala startar man nu gruvan i november. 1000 jobb i 25 år. Här i Jokkmokk har man alltså hittat en lika stor fyndighet. 90% av den här gruvan ägs av engelska intressen. Resten är svenska. Det finns bara ett problem. Fyndigheten ligger precis där samerna har sina renar. Det hela har idag delat Jokkmokk i 2 delar, för och emot. Om 5 år hoppas gruvbolaget att brytningen ska kunna starta, om man nu får klartecken.
Jag tycker det ska bli en gruva, för samhället behöver det.
Ja, det behövs hur mycket som helst. För att det är ju bara pensionärer snart här i Jokkmokk.
Och här är ju den här halvön där de tilltänkta gruvplanerna är. Så, och uppdämda...
Det är precis på ert område?
Ja, det är ju alltså på våra året runt marker där vi är med renarna.
Vad betyder det för er om det skulle bli en gruva där nu då?
Ja, alltså det är en katastrof.
In some ways, you need to make your voice heard, and you have to also use other ways to try to get a change. With the actions that happened in Galok, with those road blockades and so on, I think that was what was needed to get this question on the agenda. Otherwise, it would just be a question that there are some locals that are against some mine somewhere up in the north. But now, with those actions, I think that people, and now I'm talking much about the media and the media coverage, that people that saw that this is much larger than that. We are living in an area here in Jokkmokk where we are right now. There are many that thinks that that's a mine that's the future. It's bringing job to this area and so on and so on. But what we saw and what I saw from the beginning is that no one was talking about the people who was living in this area and what impacts it will give to them. And of course my culture. I mean, we are so connected to these lands, and no one is talking about the value of the lands on another dimension than drilling it and blowing, take the ground from the area. I mean, the area is telling my people's history, and I want to give it to my future children. I think that things that had happened these last years with Galok and other things shows that the coming generation and those who are youngsters now, they don't accept it. They want a change, and that's good. And of course, I also think that we are a people that lives in so many in 4 countries, and I mean we have different opportunities to make our voice heard. Many years. We have a history that was ugly to be a Sami, that you don't wanted to show up who you were. But now we have come to a new age when it's not ugly anymore. That we become a strong voice, a proud voice, that we are not begging for our culture, that we say that this is who I am and who we are, and we have the right to exist. As much that you have the right to exist. And you live the way you are living, and I live the way I'm living. And there's no right or wrong, but we have to have the right to do that. It's not up to another to say that your culture is not good enough.
My name is Marie Persson. I'm a member of the Sami Parliament, and I'm a founder of the organization Stop Rönnbäck Nickel Mining Project in Umeå River. I'm really committed in the mining debate in Sweden, and I work with indigenous people's rights, human rights and children's rights. I believe in 2012 we saw a really peak in this mining boom, promoting really strong demands on the Swedish state to help the mining industry. There are several environmental issues. Several examples. I believe that they knew that this was just a short peak and they wanted to make as much money at the shortest time possible. Therefore, we saw this prospecting boom of fairly small prospecting mining companies with huge dreams and plans and really large-scale projects. And Rönnbäcken is one typical example of that. And this mining company, the prospecting company Nickel Mountain, they are actually protected by the state and the government that they have more legal rights to the ground than the Sami people and the indigenous people that has been living in this area and are using it and are practicing their culture here and has always been doing that. They want to start this really large-scale nickel mining with 3 open-day pits, and this is in a water system. It's upstream in the Umeå River, and so this is a really it's a large river that runs all the way from the mountains through the whole region and down to the Baltic Sea. It is affected by hydropower, so it's situated directly in connection with several high consequence dams. And these high consequence dams, it means that if one of these high consequence dams should break here upstream in the Umeå River, then all dams downstream would go. And it would create a tsunami And we also know that this area, the ground, the drilling results has shown that there are asbestos in this drilling cores that is really toxic and really light material that you cannot contain. So to do this really destructive open air, this open pit mining, should of course, these asbestos fibers will spread. And you have all the other pollutions, of course, to the water, to the air, to the ground, everything that will come of this nickel mining. And since it's really large scale, of course, it will be extremely a lot of infrastructure, a lot of transportations. And this area is a traditional Sami area. It has a classification as a national interest for the reindeer herding. That means it's really important. The Sami people that are affected here, it's over 100 Samis that are affected, but it's just a handful of Sami people that can actually appeal in the process. People, they live here, of course, by reindeer herding, but as well we live by fishing. It's really strong, and hunting, traditional food gathering, handicraft, the duji, and also other Sami entrepreneurship that are dependent on this to be able to live here and to have our culture as our ancestors always have been doing. We need to have this connection. We need to have the land, we need to have the water, and we have our spirituality in this land, and it's our future, and it's also our history, our knowledge, and it's important for our language and everything. What is important to know about Sweden, 93% of all iron ore that are produced in Europe comes from northern part of Sweden. It actually comes from Sápmi, from Sami territory. In Rönnbäck, the reindeer herders had made a complaint to the UN committee, CERD, Committee of Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And so they are looking on Rönnbäck as a case to review it. And they have said to Sweden that all mining activity needs to stop until they have made their review. So this is a really interesting case to follow now, but we will see more of those cases, I believe, if nothing else happens. And Sweden are getting criticism from UN mechanisms that they are not respecting Sami people's rights in different kinds of areas. But today, at 2015, we see no change from the Swedish state in how they treat the Sami people.
The government's impact on the Sami culture have been big, but we're still living and still fighting for our rights.
For me, it's a great gift to be a Sami. I think it's a great gift to have a strong culture and live in another culture. It gives me different perspectives.
I will do everything that I could, that my children could have the possibility to live as a Sami.